Welcome back to the Pro Series Podcast. This is episode 157, and today's guest is Bjarni Herrera. He is an author of a book called Supercharging Sustainability. He has decades of experience in leadership positions in banks, financing, and a bunch of other professional services. We talk about all his expertise, his book. So if you're wanting to learn more about brand dynamic and corporate sustainability and financing, this is the episode for you. But before we get into this episode, please like, subscribe, and review this podcast on wherever you listen to podcasts. And now I hope you enjoy episode 157 with Bjarni Herrera. Anare, thank you so much for coming on the Pro Series podcast today and taking time out of your day to come on. I can't wait to hear about your work and your book and everything else you're about.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for having me. Look forward to it.
Yeah. Well, let's start from the very beginning. I want to start out like how you started your career. Right after high school, did you go to college? Like, how did that all go about?
Yeah, I mean, I have lived most of my life in a small island nation, Iceland, in the northern Atlantic. Have family roots in Colombia, so I have a little bit of a mix of Latin American blood and northern Nordic blood as well. But I grew up in a small town in the north of Iceland. You know, went the normal route, elementary school to high school, and then off from hometown to university. Was a pretty nice childhood that I had, and it was nice growing up in Iceland. As a young kid, I mean, I was playing sports. Was the captain of my football team for a long time, so in early on exposed to leadership positions and responsibilities. So that was a nice thing to take in for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I always talk about sports, how sports kind of like drive your success later on in life and put a structure to your life and help you to succeed later on. Do you think that helped you out a lot?
I think it did. I think sports have this element to it that you very quickly see progress, and you quickly see output of your effort that you put in, and you very well see that with your peers in your team, those who are really putting the effort in, they progress faster. So you have this kind of benchmarking tool quite early on, which you don't necessarily have all the time in school, because it's difficult to gauge. You can't really see the grades your fellow students get, but you can see if your friend is getting faster than you are on the pitch. Like that's like, it's so tangible, the
Mm-hmm.
effort you put in and the output and the result of that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I still consider myself an athlete. I've been going from sports, like played football for 20 years, skiing since I was two, went into cycling. Now I'm into running. Of course, I'm getting older, so you have to consider that fact. But I'm trying to push my limits. I was never a great athlete. I didn't become a pro athlete or anything like that. But I was fortunate to train with proper athletes,
Yeah.
so I could see the output of the effort.
Yeah, that's interesting. You brought that up how it's easily comparable to other athletes in the workforce or in school. Did you ever struggle with that aspect because you couldn't really see other people, or did it help you better because you could just focus on yourself?
I remember thinking to myself, you know uh, in university age, kind of, I thought that having this kind of athletic background in team sports and individual sports would help me a lot, like to progress and succeed and all of that. But it wasn't so simple, because you have so many intangible things when you're trying to succeed in business or succeed in uh, within a company, striving for promotions, or whatever it is. It's not as clearly, if you put effort in, you're more likely to, you know,
Hmm.
achieve the results that you're going for. But it's maybe not that simple, because I mean, it's your network, it's your friends, it's who you know, it's these internal politics. It's like it's luck, timing. When you think about your business, like the businesses I've managed, sometimes came down to just being the right person at the right time, and nothing to do with effort. Yes, I put a lot of effort into it, but it was also luck, and it was also timing. So there are aspects there as well.
Yeah, let's get into your professional career and how you kind of started into it. You went to school and everything, and afterwards you went and did what? Like, what was your first job? And
Mhm.
let's kind of work our way into what you do now.
Yeah, for sure. So I studied sociology in high school, decided to go for law, finished a law degree,
Okay.
went from there, worked in banking and finance for close to a decade. Uh, my first job out of university, out of law school, out of university, was bankruptcy law,
Oh,
following the financial crisis in '08. So
wow.
that was quite a heavy task for a fresh graduate to work on, making, or like have to take the decision to make people bankrupt or go after assets. And
Mm,
it was a messy thing, but very early on confronted with very difficult stuff. So that was very challenging, but I learned a lot from that, and I'm very thankful for that experience. That From there, I went and was hired as a secretary of the board of directors of a large bank in the Nordics, which is now listed in Iceland and Sweden. And we were, restructuring the bank after the financial crisis in '08. So that was also very, a heavy lifting
yeah.
task. That's a position I served for about 5 years. From there, went to Asia, did an MBA, ended up living in Asia for 4 years: South
Wow.
Korea, Philippines, Singapore, China. Uh, yeah, very intense, very fun time. Went to work for an American logistics company doing ocean shipping in Singapore for a couple of years. That was really nice. Company based out of, or headquartered in Seattle in the US. Very nice experience. But from there, I got into the field that I'm working on now, which is sustainability, sustainable finance.
Okay.
When I was doing banking before, I was doing a lot of corporate governance, which is one of the big pillars of sustainability. But yeah, that's where I got into sustainability.
Explain a little bit about sustainability finance. I mean, in my career, I'm an interior designer, and sustainability is a huge thing, with building
Yeah,
materials and everything now. What does it mean for the finance side of it?
yeah. No, I mean, nice that you mentioned like your interior design field, where like sustainability comes into play with all things related to like material selection,
Hmm.
energy efficiency, indoor air quality, etc., etc. And then there are like bigger implications of like choosing the right suppliers based on like certain sustainability aspects. Do they have the right labels? Don't they have the right labels? How are they managing their supply chain? How's the workforce? Like, where are their operation located, etc. So definitely a lot of sustainability considerations in your field. And like just the things that I described now can be really applied to any field. Like, there are certain sustainability implications in whichever operation, whether it's insurance companies or energy companies or transportation companies. And like today, and for the last 5 years or so, most companies have been trying to rethink their entire operation, their entire supply chains, in how their strategies and how they integrate sustainability. So how they integrate environmental issues, social issues, governance issues. So this is kind of corporate sustainability. So where finance comes into play is when companies need to, finance a new business arm, finance replacing machinery, car manufacturing companies going to shift their entire operational model to producing electric vehicles.
Mm.
Then they need like copious amounts of capital to do that. So they go to the financial markets, capital markets, and get a loan from institutional investors to finance that new kind of electric vehicle green strategy. And that's where finance comes into play. And then there are a lot of consideration in how you structure the loans and how you make sure that what you are then doing is actually green, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ironically, I had a job probably in the beginning of my career. It was a home that was part of a historical unit, and they had to get historical like loans from the bank just because of it being historic, and then it had to have some type of sustainability to it, like a percentage of materials that went into that house or bought for that house all had to be under a certain percentage, which is very interesting that a lot of people don't understand or even know about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when did it come to a point where you wanted to write the book?
Oh, uh, I mean, I think from early age, I've been entrepreneurial, and I was listening to one of your most recent podcasts with a guy who was writing a sales book, and he was
Oh,
talking about how early on he was engaged in selling, and he didn't really know it was selling.
yeah.
I felt he was also describing myself. Like I was always like doing some activities, like trying to get some. I didn't even think about it in terms of money. I was just I liked talking to people. I liked like getting people interested in stuff.
Hmm.
And I was also super engaged and super interesting kid. So I liked learning. Uh, so when I got into this field of sustainability, I was fortunate that I've been in these leadership positions for a long time, and in my sustainability field, like I've been a CEO of a consulting company that was acquired by KPMG, was hired to a Norwegian company as a COO, which was acquired by S&P Global. So I've been in positions and in organization that has had that have had quite a lot of influence in how the market is developing, how people are talking about things. So also in positions of responsibility of like I need to know my stuff.
Mm.
Like I have to make sure that I know as much as I can. I definitely don't know everything, far from it, but to be able to speak about things with the comfort that I the advice that I'm giving, the products that I'm selling are sound, that are really making good impact. So it was, about like the book was published like about 2 months ago. It was
Oh,
about 2.5 years ago before that I said, why I've learned a lot. Like I like learning, and I felt I was progressing very fast in my knowledge. So I said, why don't I just like put something on paper and try to share it with people. Like at the time, I was also teaching a class, the first sustainability and sustainable finance class at a university in Iceland,
mm.
that I taught for like about 3-4 years. So that also influenced me to say, I feel I have a lot to give, so why don't I give it?
Yeah. A great attitude to have. I feel like there's so many people out there that don't want to give it and they kind of want to keep it to themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it is a position of conflict. Like most of my career, I've been selling advice, selling my knowledge. So it's like I want to get paid for it, but I feel the more I give, the the more people are willing to
Mm.
engage me. So it's like just a nice. It's not even a trade-off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was reading about your book before we got on the call, and one part of it I kind of want your input on, and that's like how to help your team and your management company kind of embrace the whole sustainability side of the financial practices and everything. Because I feel like lots of the time you could be on board, but a lot of your teammates or your coworkers who maybe be voting on this or have a lot to do with this are not on board. What is your advice on that?
Yeah, it is like the field of sustainability and sustainable finance is becoming, quite complex nowadays. There's this huge influx of new regulations and laws which the
Hmm.
governments are putting in place. Much like I'm in Europe, you're in the US. Like it's much more in Europe. It's much less in the US, but it may be an indicator of what is yet to come in the US.
Hmm.
Uh, so some companies are just forced to implement sustainability considerations or change some parts of their operation, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
But with respect to leaderships and teams, with any organizational change, it kind of has to come from the top. So if the CEO doesn't believe in it, you know, how is that going to impact the rest of the management team and down the line? So it has to be a sound strategy to focus on sustainability and sustainable finance. And what I've experienced working with, several well-renowned companies, organizations, governments around the world over the last several years is that the knowledge base of people, because this field is so fast developing, the knowledge base of people is very different.
Hmm.
So you very often can come into a meeting, you're talking about topic X, but you start talking about apples and oranges almost immediately, and it will be very hard to reach a consensus. So what I'm constantly confronted with today in my work is to level the knowledge base of people.
Hmm.
Okay, if we're talking about green finance, for example, these are the parameters. This is the basic information that I like to know. I'm working with one global investment company right now, and one of the things that they've asked me to do, and we identified this need. They have been doing sustainable finance for quite some time, but there was a lot of inconsistency within the organization. What are we talking about? What is green? What are we trying to finance? Where do we want to place ourselves? Are we going to go after these types of assets or those types of assets? So let's level the playing field. Let's create some sort of internal roadmap and level.
Hmm. That's interesting. And I like how you brought up how it's a completely revolving door. Like there's so much news coming out of this, and there's so many people that think they know everything, and there's a bunch of misinformation there, and not everybody's on the same page. And I mean, I do a lot in the social media world. It's the same way. The algorithm is everybody thinks they're an expert, but they actually don't know anything, or they just are spreading misinformation on it and kind of practicing in the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, it is actually a great example that you bring up the social media algorithm. I mean, I'm very novice of the. I'm happy to have teammates who can, worry about that. But it has a lot of similarities, like what you're describing. Like I've been working in this for like let's say 10, 15 years, and the algorithm has been changing so much.
Hmm.
Like you constantly need to rewire your logic and head around like, okay, wait, what is the algorithm right now? Like this news that just came out or that report that came out, that is actually gonna, really impact what we're doing and how we're gonna do it. For example, uh, this huge uprising in sustainability, ESG investing, etc., was seems to have been very much built on certain research that came out about, let's say, 10 years ago, that said something. This research said something like, if you do good, meaning you do good for society, you could do good for the environment. So from a corporate perspective,
Hmm.
so you focus on these good things, what they call corporate social responsibility or social responsibility. So if you do good, your business will ultimately do well. So if you do the good things, your cash flow will be positive, your market size will continue to rise, your stock price will continue to go up, etc. So that was kind of the logic, that was the underlying logic behind the rise of this big wave of sustainability in ESG investing. Earlier this year, there seems to be an indication that new research is coming out where some researchers are starting to drill into this 10-year-old narrative or story and saying, well, what we have discovered is this is actually not true. It's not enough to do good in order to do well. Like there is no correlation. If you do really good, treat your employees really well, and you contribute a lot to your local communities and make sure you don't pollute, etc. It's not a direct correlation to your business is booming. So there is like a new discussion going to take place, which is really going to like push the fundamental pillars in how corporates are approaching sustainability and sustainability integration. Not to say like none of this is wrong, like we clearly need to take better care of our planet, and we need to take care of our societies and people, and there is too much inequality, there is too much pollution, there's too much emission around the world, but it doesn't necessarily lead to good business by taking care of those things. So it's kind of what, the example I always take is that the American investors, so let's say Texas-based investment hedge fund managers, or if we use that stereotype or archetype, they think with their nose, like they invest in a company and like they want to see return, right? Mm-hmm. Return on their capital, and they're like, oh, this company is doing a lot of this, ESG, environmental, social stuff, they ask the fundamental question, is that going to lead me to get a better return on my investment? And they haven't been convinced yet that they are getting a better return. So this is creating a huge wave throughout the sustainable finance community globally. And people are rethinking, okay, is this sustainability journey gonna create the return that the investors want? So this is the big debate right now. I don't know how this debate is gonna land, but this is what people are talking about in high positions and some key companies around the world.
That's interesting. I want to know how that turns out and what other companies and corporate in the corporate world will adapt to and what they won't adapt to. Yeah, and what I've learned a lot from what you just said too is adapting to your profession and learning from your profession. I think there's so many people that go into their profession with or throughout their whole career use the same mindset as what they did when they went into that profession, and they're not willing to change. They're not willing to learn, because every profession, I don't care what profession you're out there, it changes over time. It has to, or it's going to die. So, I mean, learning that is huge.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. And this is something that I've tried to employ for myself, this learning mindset. Yes, I have, achieved certain things, made good progress, but it doesn't stop there. That's just like my progress of learning. Yes, I learned a few things. So I also made mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes. I'm not gonna, continue to do those mistakes. I'm also not gonna just continue to do the things that, created some of my successes. So it's just a constant evolving mindset, learning mindset. I agree with you. Like I feel that's the only way to to live, only way to grow. But I mean, clearly we can't maybe have those expectations of everyone in the world, but you
No,
know,
no, not at all. So if you would go back in time and give advice to yourself before you started your career, what would you tell that person? Or maybe someone that's trying to get into your career.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like I would give myself two like perhaps contradictory advice. Like going back to the sports analogy, like
Hmm.
push harder. Like put more effort into what you're doing, put more focused effort into what you're doing, like going back to the 80-20 principle, like 20% of your effort results in it, like 80% of your uh, output or results, like but I was kind of managing myself in a way from when I was uh, a teenager, so there was a lot of like self-discovery, self-learning.
Mm.
So that was just like a painful process for me to try to identify what worked, what didn't work. I didn't have a playbook. I didn't have like the tools that I have now. So I would tell myself push harder, but at the same time, also relax. Like also be patient. It's about this consistency of effort over time. So it's not about expending yourself every day. It's about expending the, you know, certain logical energy consistently over time, which will get you so far.
Oh yeah.
So I would tell, and do tell people, young people who want to get into my profession, be patient. It takes time. Be willing to put 10, 20 years. Maybe you won't see any like big results until after that time, but you have to be willing to put that effort in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bjarni, I really do appreciate you coming on the podcast. I want to finish up on where people could find your book and where people can follow you.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I'm on my website, Bjarni Herrera, Bjarni Herrera. Uh, there you should be able to find all the information you need about the book, myself, my services, the firms I manage, and yeah, happy to connect.
Awesome, Bjarni. Well, thank you so much again for hopping on the Pro Series podcast and taking time out of your day to talk about your career.
Likewise, and thank you very much, Eric. Your podcast is amazing, and I've listened to several of your episodes, and you get great speakers on here, and
Well, thank you.
continue to do good work.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.